Everybody, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners elected officials meeting for July 31, 2020. And by way of introduction, and Romero will see far more people on the screen probably than I do. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board. Also present is Vice Chair Commissioner Ty Menser. County Commissioner Gary Edwards is in the house. And I see we have County Auditor Mary Hall, Treasurer Jeff Gadman, Assessor Stephen Drew, and Assistant County Manager Robbie Campbell. Who else am I missing now, Romero?
In Zoom, Sheriff Naza is joining us, and I believe she's to join us via audio. And also here in the room 280 is Commissioner Edwards, as well as the County Coroner, Mr. Warnock.
Oh, Gary, where's Gary? He's in the room?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Okay. So this is slated for an hour, and so it's an open discussion. There's no agenda except whatever's in your head to get out. So we will start with, let me just go around the room. Stephen.
So an update on where we are, I suppose, would be in order. The separation in the lobby is functioning. We have customer counters in the outer lobby and the inner lobby so that they can be managed from behind the plexiglass. This enables us to limit the number of people in the inner lobby and to alert people in the outer lobby that they're next. So that's set up. We are approaching high season for my office. Reval notices will be mailed on the 24th, and our office-wide training will occur on the 20th. We are concerned that we do not yet have all of our laptops from IT, and those are essential in order for us to do our training on the 20th. And in advance of that training, when we'll pull everybody out of the field, we have to have time to problem check everybody on the new laptops and existing tablets and those computers that have cameras in the office, so that when we do our meeting on the 20th, we won't waste time on IT challenges. So I know IT is swamped, and I know that we are and should be a second priority to the auditor in getting those laptops out, but we're stressing because we don't have them yet. So anything that can be done to help that would be great. I would say that on our annual process, we can, and I just sent some information to Robin, but we're to a point where I can report with confidence that new construction is up, both residential and commercial. Should be somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million higher than in 2019. So I know that the projections were more conservative, and that may have been appropriate, but at this point, we're confident new construction will come in, that is taxable new construction, will come in somewhere above $725 million. It's more likely that it will be about $750 million. The reason why I can't give you an exact number today is because the difference between the gross value of new construction and taxable new construction is driven by subtracting out all of the exempt properties. And our software doesn't let us to do that at this point. Within 10 days, we'll have a hard number. But for this discussion, it looks like the worst case scenarios, it's 75 million higher than last year. And the more likely outcome is that new construction is $100 million higher than last year. Let's see, I want to thank commissioners and the county manager for helping us post our internal hiring to promote two appraiser assistants who have for substantial time qualified to be senior appraisers. We had a senior appraiser retire. This internal hire will promote one of them into that position. We then need to reclassify to have some parity with these two employees that have been training and have met all the qualifications over the last year and a half. And those two actions will not change the fact that we will still have the vacancy to fill as an appraiser assistant. So there'll be two more actions coming before commissioners, and we would ask for expedient determinations on those, because we're promoting from within. We're going to have this vacancy for 3 months anyway, because of how much process there is to pull that off. So that's my report, and everyone's healthy in my office, and we're following protocols, and it's good to see y'all.
Wow, thank you. I'm going to jump to Robin real quick and ask, what does that mean to the county with the news that Assessor Drew just gave us about 750 million up in construction?
So what we do is we calculate next year's property tax collection in part based on new construction. We apply the rate, the property tax rate. So it means that we'll be up by about $750,000 additional property tax for next year, roughly.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. All right, Sheriff Snauza.
I really don't have anything to report right now.
Okay, but thanks for joining in. And how about Coroner Gary Warnock?
Hello, can you hear me?
Kind of.
Hold on a second. How about now?
Thanks for joining us, Gary. Thanks for being in. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so before we started, I was telling Commissioner Edwards that we're seeing
Gary, can you bring the microphone up?
oh, is that better? Okay. Before we started, I was telling Commissioner Edwards that we're all good, except for we're seeing a spike in suicides. We had a total of 60 last year, and right now we're sitting at 45. And so we're averaging about 2 suicides a week. Other than that, we're seeing overdoses, not a steady incline, but we're seeing methamphetamine and heroin. And other than that, we're all healthy in my office.
Gary, the 45 year to date, what's the predominant means or method?
Gunshot.
Okay. And Commissioner Menser, if you have any questions, or Commissioner Edwards, just jump in, because I'm taking notes as well, so I can't see you. All right, good. Well, thank you for that.
Yep, thank you.
John Thunheim, prosecutor.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
It's nice to see everybody, even if it is on a screen, because we feel so, I think everybody feels so isolated right now, which probably explains a little bit of what Gary's perceiving out there. Yeah, I'm going to start off by saying I think I'm really taken aback by Gary's report in the increase of suicide, but it makes sense to me that we've got a community out there that is struggling, and I think we've really got to step up in terms of leadership to try to reach out to those to these folks. But in my office, we are in the groove as much as anybody can be, because the groove keeps shifting right day to day. But we're back into court now. The court is slowly starting to revamp or to reopen to all cases. During the crisis, obviously, we had focused on very specific cases, and we're slowly starting to reopen to the other cases. We're back in the courtrooms again more frequently. The calendars have all opened up. We've not yet started jury trials, and when we start that is right now unknown, because the court's seeing the latest increase in numbers and kind of reacted in a status quo, just to keep the status quo for now. But I'm sure everybody may have heard that they're actually in negotiation to work on developing an external court space where that'll be designed to do trials in the COVID environment. In our own shop, we're still mostly working from home. I have people coming into the office, but pretty much only on an as-needed basis, or folks that need to appear in court. The court is also starting to, Superior Court is increasing the number of Zoom hearings. District Court has been on Zoom since early on. And so most of my district court lawyers have been working from home virtually full time, appearing for court even from home. Superior Court is just starting to move into that. So we're starting to do some hearings remotely, what we call remote hearings. And so other than that, we've not had a positive test in our office as well. Everybody is healthy, and for the most part I would say in as good of spirits as could be expected under these circumstances. And I'm really proud of my entire crew and everything that they've done over the last 6 months. It's been incredible to watch these people adapt and overcome and problem solve. And I'm sure that's true for everybody else's shop too. It's a tribute to, I think it's a tribute to public service at its best. That's my personal opinion. So that's kind of my, just a status report for my shop.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, John, because it's good news after hearing what Gary Warnock shared, because that is stunning. I highlighted it in yellow because it's just shocking stat, and we're only just over halfway through the year. But I'm glad that you said what you did, because each of these offices, your staff and what you're doing to lead your staff is not only critical, but it's amazing what's being done via Zoom. It just functions. The machine keeps on going. And sometimes, not sometimes, these whatever the crisis is brings out the worst in people, but it's overshadowed by the good in people, how we adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
And
Hey, I want to mention something. This is just for others' information. We've completely incorporated Microsoft Teams now into our office culture. We do all of our internal video conferences and communication via Teams because the chat channels are much easier to use than trying to create email threads. And the ability to share documents and share screens with everybody it's been a lifesaver for us in terms of our ability to work at home. So if you haven't looked at Teams, I'd encourage you to take a look at it. It's been a huge asset for us in this whole thing.
is that something, Romero, that would benefit our office?
Can you elaborate the question, please?
Yeah, well, John is talking about using Teams. It's a Microsoft application. Is that something that would benefit?
That environment exists, and Robin and everybody else uses Teams as well as Zoom. I have my experiences with Teams, not very successful, but I know that Mary and John uses Teams very well. I personally had many challenges with it. For me, Zoom seems to be more easy to use, but that's just my opinion. But I think for this type of settings, I believe the Zoom is probably the best setting for you to have those live streams.
Okay.
And for the large audience meetings, we still use Zoom too. I agree with that.
Yeah,
The Teams
totally.
is really nice for the small meetings and being able to chat and share. And Romero, I'm sure your bad experience is user error.
Well, absolutely. I don't disagree with
Kathy to
that.
try to train him a little bit.
Right on
Robin, go
point
ahead.
is user error.
Go ahead, Robin.
And we've tried Teams. I do use Teams, and what we're finding is that if it's a large group, we have problems, and then quite a few of our directors can't get the microphones to work.
Okay.
So
Ty, did you have your hand up? Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Let's go to Mary Hall. There's nothing going on in your office.
Oh, nothing at all. But I want to echo what what John said. We use Teams internally, and it's an amazing tool. I mean, it really does make us seem like we're together, even though I have not seen Diana Benson in person since March 9th.
Oh my goodness.
And we're doing that on purpose, separating Tilly as well as Lynette, you know, where we've got people in teams of 2. But when we have all staff meetings, we use Zoom because you can see more people on the screen. But another product we use that has really helped in this COVID environment is called Planner. And it's like a project management type of thing. So I can see if I have given Emmett a project or Tilly a project, we create a project card and I can see exactly where they are in that. So I'm not constantly saying, where are you with this? Where are you with that? And it's really an amazing tool that you may want to check out. So at a glance, and it helps me stay organized. Okay, what's on my plate? What do I have to do? Because I get pulled in a million different directions, as you can imagine. You know, my financial services team is truly amazing. I know, Robin, you're working closely with many of them on this COVID thing. I feel really confident that, you know, we're going to get reimbursed for all of this grant money. We're working hard to ensure that everybody has proper documentation, because that's going to be critical, not today or tomorrow, but next year or 2 years from now, or whenever this federal grant gets audited. So we're working hard to ensure that we don't have to give any of that money back. Licensing and recording, I don't know if anybody has been by there. I'm not able to have my entire staff work in that office because we simply don't have enough space to physically distance that 6 feet. So what we have are people in every other station. And then we have a couple people working from home every day, working on our document imaging project, which we've made huge strides on. This project is scanning back images that a private company did before my time, and they didn't QC them. So we're having to rescan all of those documents, and it's years worth. So we expect it to go on another 7 years, but we're making really good progress on that. And the other interesting thing, the refinance market is going crazy. So my recording folks are swamped. And because of that, our revenue is up. We're probably 53, 54% of budget, what our revenue projection was. So that's very encouraging. Elections, wow. You know, we're fine tuning this voting center day by day, trying to, you know, we're doing time studies now just to see how long it takes when somebody drives up, needs to get registered and then get a ballot. And then, of course, when they just need a replacement ballot. So that's going really well. So far, we've only had to deal with a couple people that, you know, were not excited about having to wear masks, but that is a requirement. And I've been on the phone with Elizabeth, and hopefully we won't get sued, but I'm not letting people in my ballot processing center or my voting center without masks because I have limited election staff. And if they go down, that's my biggest fear, is that my full-time election staff or Diana or I get sick, and seriously sick. So we're actually using, we bought these rapid scan thermometers. We're actually taking people's temperatures when they come into the ballot processing center and for staff and our voting center. So, you know, we've got plexiglass out there. We're trying to make sure that all the voters know that we've moved out of building 1. So we're still, in my opinion, having sign challenges, but we work with Cap City Press like every other political campaign does, and they don't move us to the front of the line. So, so we're still waiting for some signage. We are going to be open on Saturday from 10 to 4. Monday, 8 to 6, and then of course 8 o'clock on election day. So turnout is actually really good. We're tracking like we were in 2008. So as of last night, we were at about 20% turnout. And since we typically get late ballots, I'm estimating we're going to be at about 45 or 50%. So we're still, having to look towards November and strategize how we're going to deal with weather. That is the big challenge we're going to have come November. So we've, ordered little Ziploc baggies from Uline that will be putting the ballots in, for example, but how to keep staff dry. We may put up some awnings, but then we have to worry about the wind. So, and the biggest challenge is the last person in line. So Sheriff Snaza, I'm going to be using some of your folks to help us on election night because there are too many entrances into this facility and we have to cut off at 8 o'clock the last person in line. And the only way to do that is with a car or somebody walking behind a car. So anyway, we've still got a lot of challenges. Some not so good news for the future is we are really outgrowing our current ballot processing center. I don't know that we're going to be able to do another presidential election there 4 years from now if our growth continues at the pace that it is. This election, it's become really evident, and I brought this up with staff and they said they had been thinking that same thing. So so something to think about in the future. And when we have to go back to building one after this election, because we will have to move back there in between elections, I don't have enough room for all of my election staff either. So fortunately, we can do voter registration remotely. So I'm going to have probably 50% of my staff working remotely. Come the February election and the April election, I'm not sure what we're going to do, but we've got a real creative bunch of people and we'll figure it out. But I know everybody has space issues, but this pandemic has really magnified that. And, with my licensing and recording folks and my election folks, we're open to the public. So there's only, I have to have people there. And there's only so much they can do from home because DOL does not allow people to remote in. So.
Wow. Commissioner Edwards, I'll get to you in just a moment, sir. I just want to make a comment to Mary. I probably see your staff downstairs more than you do, because when I'm going by, I'm always popping my head in and saying good morning. Man, it's just empty, It's eerie. It's just weird still.
Yeah, I mean, they're still getting, 80 to 90 customers through a day.
Wow. And you bring up an excellent point. The backbone of our democracy is what? Elections. And if someone were to come in without a mask, what a way to take down our democracy.
Yeah.
So good for you for making people, forcing them to mask up or get out. And I would take a court challenge on that.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a candidate, by the way, who didn't want to put on a mask and we didn't let him in. So
I'm sorry, I'm not opining. I'm just laughing. Commissioner Evers, go ahead, sir.
For Mary, are you noticing more new registrations to vote this time around?
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
is it
We
substantial?
expect to be at 200,000 registered voters by the general election. We're at about 190 right now.
And what was it, say, last year? I mean, what were you at then? 180 or?
Probably 100. Yeah, maybe 175 to 180. I can look real quick.
Well, no, that's okay. I'm just looking for generalization on it. But are a lot of your people seeing new people move to the county from elsewhere, or just people that have never decided to vote? Now they're deciding to vote? Do you have any idea on that?
I think it's new people moving into I think it's both actually, but there's a lot of growth happening in Thurston County, and it becomes evident to us because we have to make sure that we've got all the streets and addresses in there so we can precinct them. So we really notice when those new subdivisions go in because we've got to get those addresses into our voter registration database. So it's a combination of both.
Kind of like the assessor said on new construction, I guess, must be an indicator of that growth as well, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mary.
Mhm.
Is Linda Meyer on, is she checked in?
And I sent her a text asking her if she was going to join.
There is a phone number, but I think it's sure it's NASA using a phone number. The last digits of the phone number is 800 43-800. I think that's Sheriff's NASA.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Jeff Gavin, our treasurer, the checkbook. And just go ahead and unmute yourself and wisen us
All
up.
right, there we are.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
This has been very, very, very strange few months, and I really am proud of my staff and their commitment to you and the rest of the public because they shifted very, very quickly back in the middle of March. And they have continued to prove to be resilient and adaptable to things as they're changing. I am still having most of them work from home, following guidance and trying to keep them healthy. We are doing well. We're all healthy. We're all happy. We're doing group check-ins every once in a while so that everybody kind of knows that we're connecting. I've got one staff member that started a week and a half before we sent everybody home. So people are slowly getting to know her, but it's worked out really well. I committed to staff yesterday that we're going to continue with this sort of office operation at least until the end of the year. I personally feel it'll probably go until next summer. We've got to get a vaccine online, and then there's got to be a comfort level with the vaccine, right? Just because it's available doesn't mean everybody's going to run out and use it because they want to see, is it going to make you sick? Because if it makes you sick, I don't want it. Of course, the wild card for us is October, when second half tax payments are going to be due. I really feel like, March, April, and May got people much more comfortable with the idea of doing business online. So I don't anticipate our normal October foot traffic. And I think another big driver of that is there's a lot of people out there right now that are nervous about being inside a building with strangers, and that's okay. Having said that, we've had a steady but light traffic flow into the office since we reopened, but it's all going very well. Staff, like I said, they're resilient, they're adaptable. Management team I've got is incredible in terms of making sure their staff has what they need. I'm going to reiterate what Steven said, though. We got to get those laptops. We kind of all knew that the IT department was going to be the bottleneck there because they're the ones that have to set up the machines for us. I have offered to let the two technical people in my office assist them if we can get our machines set up and then let them just check them. That would certainly speed up deployment. Got some really good news in the last few months. The state treasurer's remit, it was up over last year for every month. I'm sorry, May was down. Well, it was up. It was down from our projection. We had projected 34.7 million. It was 33.1, but June, we projected, about the same, and it was 36.6, but July, we were projecting 48 million and the state remit came out at $71.8 million. So, you know, I know we've gone through some real uncertainty about the economy, and there's still uncertainty about the economy, but there's more and more signs that are showing that it's going to bounce back here quicker than what we were thinking in May. But having said that, we need to be cautious and wait and see. But we're doing well, and I really miss our office potlucks because it's just a fun time and a fun thing for all of us to do. But that's obviously not going to happen for a while. I miss in-person meetings. Every single one of these meeting platforms has pluses and minuses, and some are better at some things than others, but pretty much compared to an in-person meeting, they all suck. So, but I want to thank you all. We've got a tremendous amount of respect for each other, and my fellow elected officials and our county manager, assistant county manager have really been great to work with through the challenges that we've all faced. So that's my report.
I would echo that. Commissioner Edwards, hang on, Stephen.
Yes,
Go ahead,
for Jeff, are you noticing any indication that property taxes are unusually low returns?
The short answer to that is no. We'll have a better idea sometime around the end of September, because that's when the second half payments really start coming in on their you know, we'll get a good idea of the pace at that point.
Thanks.
Is that it, Gary?
Yep.
Because I'm going to go over to you, Stephen, but I wanted to, because Mary talked about 60 to 90 engagements of the public. John talked about, Tunheim talked about the court being digital, and we're looking at a remote section for the courts, remote building, but trials are going on. And Gary Warnock talked about his increase in his clientele. But Stephen, are you seeing, I know you have something to add, but do you have, what's your engagement like with the public?
Let me go in order if I may, and I'll answer that. Perils are going first. First, I do want to stress, as others did, the quality of staff, their adaptability, their resilience. We had a roller coaster of budget cuts that was very stressful. Work did not suffer, nor did morale. So I'm blessed to have an exceptional workforce that's getting the work done. That enabled us to capture as much new construction as we did. We doubled our efforts up to the deadline to make sure we got every dollar. What I neglected to say is that values overall are up. So that may be a surprise for some, but I think it's going to average at about 5% increase in property value countywide. A little bit higher on residential and a little bit lower on some commercial, which will pull all commercial down, but still an increase. And then in terms of activity with public, so a lot of people are using the phone and email. Some people are coming in person, but we're not like the treasurer's office, well, certainly not like the auditor's office, and to some extent not like the treasurer's office, and that some of that activity that my fellow electeds have is ongoing throughout the year. And so the public has had an opportunity to learn how to use online and distance interaction. When we send out reval notices, they'll be mailed on the 24th. For folks who have a concern about their value, that's all at once, countywide. That's the wave of interaction with our office is going to likely generate, we expect, a lot of in-person interaction, because they have not been interacting with our office until they get the reval notice. And so all we can do is be prepared for that, and what it will amount to remains to be seen. Earlier in the year, and throughout the spring, we had a very high interaction with the senior exemption program because of the increase in thresholds. And we've had, you know, a lot of ongoing work with business personal property reporting and so on. Most of that, though, we, prior to COVID, had been shifting to an online reporting, which creates some efficiency in our office and offsets the increase in accounts. But our workload is up. It's up because of the increase, dramatic increase in senior exemptions, and the increase in parcels, and the increase in concern over value and taxation. So we had a lot of interactions this year, not so much because the value changed dramatically. In fact, we're almost always able to resolve the concern on value. What they reach out to our office concerned about value because their taxes went up precipitously, and they went up precipitously for the, you know, across the county because they went down in the prior year. The legislature reduced the McCleary portion of taxes, and then it bumped back up. So anticipating that, we worked with downstairs, you know, with IT, and collaborated with the treasurer's office on this tool that is on jointly on both of our websites, which taxpayer can navigate very easily. It's really a good transparency tool, and they can see what has happened to their value over 3 years. But more importantly, they can see what has happened to every element of their tax bill over those 3 years, broken down between what was legislatively approved and what was approved at the ballot box. And that tool is a calming tool. I mean, there's still, if they call up and they're furious about the amount of taxes, they're still furious about the taxes, but it's a calming tool in that they now know that it's their fellow citizens voting for things that is the greatest effect. And in the 1 year, the single greatest effect was legislative. And so that education tool has really been a help. We're going to push that out with our press releases on reval to encourage people to utilize that tool to determine if their concern is one about taxes or one about value, and then if it's one about value, to proceed to interact with our office. So thank you for the additional time, but that's I think that pulls it all in together.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Commissioner Evers, do you have anything to add to the discussion?
Yes, I guess I would just like to have everyone think about, well, I don't know if Mary's in this group or not, but seems like everybody is, there's an efficiency issue and space savings and parking lot savings by this working at home, and maybe even efficiency issues that are coming along with this. I'm hearing from the private sector, say Boeing for an example, where they hadn't been in favor of remote work, but now they are, you know, and everybody's kind of changing their opinion. So I would think that would have the possibility of savings in the long run, and but maybe for Mary, we got to open up, you know, more space somewhere. I don't know. But I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on about how we might be able to utilize this as a benefit for the taxpayers if this this new tech work, whether it's Team or Zoom or Planner or, you know, just tech in general, how it can be beneficial to us. That's all.
So my financial services folks are, I believe, all working remotely. They come in maybe a day, or they need to pick up papers or print checks or something like that. And, you know, looking at closing out the year and getting our CAFR done, and they've been very, very, very productive working at home. I mean, they've been ahead of things. So, and Yeah, and they've all got really, really strong work ethics, so I don't doubt that they're not doing their job. Um, you know, I think if I could have my licensing and recording folks working from home, I would do that, because when we were closed and many of them were, again, we're just, our scanning project is going 1,000,000 miles an hour. And that's like indexing tens of thousands of documents a month. You know, it's elections that is the challenge. And when we're not in election mode, they can work from home, and most of them were, but it's the processing of ballots that is the big challenge, because that is a manual process. And I don't know if anybody's, you know, King 5 News came and shot some footage. I mean, it's very safe. We worked with the, whoever the last health director was, you know, we met with her, went brainstormed on everything we can do. There's a lot of plexiglass and hand sanitizer everywhere, and everybody has their own little box of supplies, so nobody shares a pen or anything. But I don't know, we need a much bigger facility 4 years down the road. And if there was a big building that we didn't need because everybody is teleworking, I'm real interested.
Okay, sounds good.
Jeff, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I want to add about working from home that the biggest challenge that we've had with that is that some neighborhoods, the internet connection is not as robust
Yeah.
as the internet connection the courthouse has. So I've got a couple of staff that have mentioned that the reaction time in the computer, so consequently the work, is slower than it is here.
Yeah, even in-house, I was having internet connections between my office and the boardroom. Go ahead. John Thunheim was next, and then Stephen.
Well, I was just going to say, I've started thinking a lot about what Commissioner Edwards mentioned, and that is, what does it look like to use this technology beyond COVID? And I've already told my staff that I think remote working is now going to be part of our culture going into the indefinite future, and actually started thinking about ways that we might be able to reduce our physical footprint over time. It's not going to happen magically, but I think there are some changes here that we could adapt and incorporate that will be long lasting and really improve the way we do business, which is, you know, the positive way of kind of looking at this.
Stephen, go ahead, sir.
So in response to Gary, I would say it's somewhat of a double-edged sword. First of all, everybody's working really well at home, and like Mary, I have no concern about people not delivering productivity. However, when you're understaffed, and we are, and your solution has been cross-training so that people are working out of their job, their clear job description to help workflows as peaks move and deadlines move throughout the office. This is much more difficult with half of the office not present. And so in the long run, I'd like to have more people in the office than I do presently, but it's not because of a lack of concern about the efficacy of employees. And then I think you mentioned, Gary, the possible savings of office space. Not the case, because the reason why we're distancing is because of our inability to socially distance in the office, which means we're using every square foot in the office to safely accommodate those who are in the office. So we actually don't have a savings. The solution that I would prefer, given cross-training as a strategy to being understaffed, would be to have more office space so that I could actually have everyone present but socially distanced. In terms of customer service, our big challenge starts on the 24th. So if a wave of people show up at the front counter, we'll have to react to that and send people home that we normally want to have in the office in order to have other people in the office to address the demand at the front counter. So, I mean, it's a challenge, but there isn't a net savings associated with it in our office.
I guess in response to that, I'd just say that I agree with you in the current situation that we're in, but I guess I'm the eternal optimist, and I'm hoping we're going to be over this in the next couple of years, whatever that is. And so at that point, I'm hoping that we can capitalize on what we've learned during this new reality that we're dealing with.
I have optimism.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jeff Gavin, and then I'm going to get to Judge Wilson. I didn't know if she was on. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, so I have also made the decision that working remotely, at least part-time, is going to be a permanent part of what we do now. From the standpoint of doing the business of the public, there isn't a reason why I need to have everybody in the office at the same time. However, the people doing this work are human, and occasional physical interaction is necessary in order to build an effective team. That's how you build trust in relationships. So, yeah, it's kind of a double-edged thing there. There's no business reason to have them all here, but I need them all to be here so that they grow those relationships that they need to have.
That's exactly true. What we've developed, right, could erode the strength of partnership. It's based on the knowledge of how hard your coworker's working when they ask for help. And so over time, the fear is that erodes, and the willingness and the team spirit erodes, and that would be debilitating to my office, and I suspect yours, Jeff. Yeah.
So when we all start returning to work incrementally, there will still need to be that trust build up again that's been lost, or that relationship because of the distancing, and people will still be, as soon as the switch is flipped, not everybody's going to come back in. Some are going to feel very uncomfortable coming back in. It's going to be awkward. Judge Wilson, thank you for joining us. You have the floor.
Great, thanks.
Hey.
Sorry for joining late and
No worries.
busy doing some other things, and then realized that I could participate in this meeting, which often I'm in court Friday morning at this time. So you guys know that I'm the chief at Family and Juvenile Court, so I'll mostly address that. And I think, jumping off of what everybody else is addressing, which is employees being remote and whether some of our practices will continue. The court has the core court admin staff, and we do have a few people working from home that are able to really work well from home. But because we are functioning as court, we have the majority of people here who are part of the court admin and court staff supporting the functioning of the court. There are other parts of court, like, for instance, juvenile probation, where those supervisors who are supervising kids that are not in detention and are out on probation, in the old days, they would have meetings with those kids and families on a regular basis at the courthouse. They're doing their work differently because we don't want to bring extra people to the courthouse. So they're meeting virtually and meeting out in public locations to keep engaged with the kids. So just sort of thinking holistically, will we continue to do that? It depends. Obviously, during the virus, I would like to think it's going to be over soon, but I think it's years, not months. But all of the mechanisms we've been trying to support our employees where possible to work remotely, and then our employees working with the public, figuring out, or citizens who have connection to the court business, figuring out a way to support that in different ways, like I've described for probation, I think is going to continue in the long run to the extent that it helps us better serve the public and is more efficient. Not exactly what you're asking about, but since I'm on and I'm sure you're curious, over here at Family and Juvenile Court, we are conducting a lot of hearings remotely. I'll give you an example. Our dependency hearings, we're doing almost entirely by Zoom. And we've been doing that since well, we did some hearings, the emergency shelter cares between March and May, but when we started back open full days and started all of our dependency hearings, we've been doing them almost exclusively by Zoom. And it's exhausting. You guys all know that. I'd rather see people in person, but there's really a good side in that people who have a trouble making it to the courthouse, if they have access, they, with a device, they are more likely to appear. So my anecdotal report is that we have more parents participating directly in the dependency hearings because they don't, sometimes a parent has to catch 3 buses from Yelm to make a 9 o'clock hearing and they don't get here. But if they're able to get someplace with Wi-Fi and they have a device, then they can participate. So we're excited about the technology that we have put in place and are getting more adept at using, and how that provides more access to the courthouse and access to meaningful hearings. Of course, I still think the most meaningful hearings are in person, because you really can tell if people are understanding and you can make sure you understand them. And there's challenges if you have other languages, etc. But largely the remote participation is helping in family law and dependency sort of cases. So I hope that kind of touches on the topics we're talking about today. I'm skipping over main campus because I know that Pam and Judge Price are really taking the lead on those issues. If you have any questions or topics that would be helpful for me to share, I'd be happy to.
Well, you're right on the money, Judge. This is an open forum, so it's whatever you would like to share. And if there's an upside to this, is as you suggested, the virtual participation is up, or your participation in court is up because of the current pandemic. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Any questions or comments for the judge? Is that you, John?
Oh, not for Judge Wilson, but I was gonna just make a comment when it's appropriate about the technology as well.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, just an observation. I agree with Jeff in that the in-person is always the best way to do that relationship building. But one thing I found is that because the remote, the ability to communicate remotely now is so instantaneous, I think I've actually seen an increase in the level of communication among my staff throughout. And part of that is because, I'm out in 5 different locations now. And so there are people in my office that never interact with each other that are now interacting. And we've been doing weekly Zoom updates, all staff updates now for a while that have really helped as well. So interestingly enough, exactly the opposite has happened in the sense that I'm almost feeling like we're building a higher level of trust in the organization, having gone to the new ability to communicate quickly and easily throughout the office, at least for me. But the downside here, the observation I wanted to make is that I'm actually a little bit worried about burnout. And I say this after just kind of doing a little bit of check-in with myself. When we started this in COVID, I was thinking, man, I'm going to have all this time on my hands because, what am I going to do at home? That kind of thing. And what I found is I can go from a meeting to a meeting with a click of a button. And now my entire day is in front of a screen. And there's no doubt, there's no drive time between. There's no time to just have a little decompression. And I felt myself at the end of the day feeling more exhausted than I had before this. And so I'm starting to talk to my staff a little bit about that and make sure that we've got the ability to check in with them and just do a little bit of burnout prevention, because that's actually one of the bigger concerns I have now from all of the ability to communicate remotely.
That and my piriformis muscle goes into spasm at the end of the day. Oh my goodness.
So how many people have monitored more than one meeting at the same time? That's a new thing.
And send emails.
Funny story. Funny story. The court has had to tell lawyers they can't try to be in 2 virtual courtrooms at once. So in the old days, if you had a family law hearing and a protection order hearing in courtroom 1 and courtroom 2, you might go into courtroom 2 and say, I have 2 commitments. Can my case go in the first half hour and then I'll go to the next courtroom for the second half hour? And it was on them to make sure they were in 2 places at once. But we have told them they can't have 2 virtual courtrooms at the same time because we can hear the other courtroom.
Sure.
That doesn't work.
Like a shell game. We only have a few minutes
I don't know how
left.
they were billing their clients.
We just have a few minutes left. I want to get to Commissioner Menser and then to Romero.
I don't know that my topics are going to fit into a couple of minutes. I wanted to raise a couple of budget related topics. One, and so I'll just throw them out there, and then if people want to send me emails or give me 2 cents later, just so you know what I wanted to ask and discuss. I think the board has teed up a discussion next week about single year budgeting versus biennial for this next couple of years and so I'd like to hear opinions from you folks if you have a preference there. And then the other one, which is the big kind of touchy topic, is just appropriate strategies for the board. You know, it was a very difficult process to go through the decisions that we made. You know, it's hard enough to build a house when you know what tools are in your shed, but when you try to build a house and you don't even know what tools are in the shed, it makes it almost impossible. So to get through a set of difficult decisions and then have about half of the elected officials say that we didn't actually have that tool, I just like to have a discussion because our lawyers, our advisors tell us that we're on absolutely solid ground when we do things like furlough and the hours cut, and then other officials don't agree with that. So is it just a difference of, we have to agree to disagree and walk away and maybe go to court someday? Or is somebody knows something that we don't know? Or can there be some information sharing or discussion that would get us on the same page? Because I don't want to exceed the law or the bounds of the law, but if I'm told by my attorneys that I have 100% authority to do something, it's very frustrating if half my elected official colleagues think I don't. So I think we just need to have a discussion about that and resolve it, or agree that we're not going to resolve it, but at least have an understanding, because I'm confused at this point. We went all the way through the process. Robin was presenting us with a set of tools. We discussed them one by one. At no point did I hear the board didn't have authority to do it until we did it. And then I heard a bunch of opinions that were contrary to our own legal advice. So it's just kind of a difficult topic we're going to have to, I think, address. Maybe not today.
Certainly not time today, because that is a meaty one. And I would love, I share that opinion. I'd love to have a discussion on that. Stephen, if you could do it briefly, you go ahead.
I just with respect, Ty, I would ask that be teed up somewhat differently. Is there are 2 legal opinions on that question of whether the commission should advise the individual electeds of what the cut is and allow them to manage their budgets. There are 2 legal opinions about that. And I would hope that commissioners would err on the side of respecting that concern. Because in the end, we all need to come from a place of the highest respect possible for one another in a difficult process. And that is a flashstone for all of us. And so please, as we move forward, it isn't clearly, can we win in court? It's, can we avoid court? Can we avoid breaking down the relationship that we have and still get to the finish line? And so I would hope it would be teed up in that way.
Well, that's why I want to have this discussion, because I've only heard, you're saying there's 2 legal arguments. I've only heard one. So if there's a good legal argument on the other side and I hear that, then I might be on the same page as the other side, and then we balance that. But I just haven't heard what the strong legal argument is. And so that's why we have to go through this process. I just want you guys to know I want to have that discussion with you.
My attorney just raised his hand.
Yeah, John, if you got 20 seconds, please.
Hopefully less. You know, I'm just going to point out that I think maybe the way to frame the conversation is not necessarily about legal authority either, because there's a lot of gray. A law professor once told me that the answer to every legal question is, it depends. And I think that has a lot to do with the variation in the gray here. there's the legal and there's the political, and I think we've got to, divide the two. But my request is, and I'm really glad Commissioner Menzer raised this, because I do think this needs to be a conversation, and that is to really have a sense of inclusion from the part of us elected officials into your budget process and discussion, because I think we could have helped you. I wanted to help you as much as I could, and so if we can think about that kind of as we go into the 2021 challenges, I'd love to create a venue for us to be able to give you that kind of input and to feel more collaborative about the budget process. That's just my 2 cents for now. And thanks, Commissioner, again for raising it. And we can talk. Absolutely.
Good job. You did that in 21 seconds. Thank you. 2 questions I was going to ask at the end, and we don't have time now, but you already answered them. That was the needs. What are your needs? And right now I'm hearing computer or technology is the big one. Number 2, I was going to ask about staff, and I heard adaptability, resilient, morale is high, all things considered, which tells me that your staff are survivors. We're all adapting, and we're very hopeful as people. Your engagement with your staff, you're continuing to engage your staff. That's wonderful with Zoom and Teams, etc. We want to get back to real life eventually. But we as colleagues are getting along, I think, really, really well. And we will have that conversation. And we did err on the side of autonomy for the elected officials. And colleagues in the workforce are a really good thing. But mentoring is where the real work gets done. And you are wonderful mentors for your staff. And that's what keeps your staff engaged and morale high. So I thank each of you for that as well. Romero, go ahead, please.
I really don't have anything to add. We're over time, but I'd just like to say thank you to all the elected officials to keep the communications open during these difficult times. And at least from my point of view, I really, really appreciate that openness and the opportunity to have a conversation.
And Robin, did you have anything to add, please? I didn't want to neglect you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the work that we're doing in coordination with all of your teams. And we're here. If you need anything, let us know.
Thank each of you. Sally forth. And don't forget, this is Friday. Don't come in tomorrow. You're not getting overtime. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Joe.
Bye, everyone.